What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and it is Sunday Fun Day, which means we're going to be talking about the list that TCG Player sends out called the Movers and Shakers list. And essentially what that is this is TCG Player, one of the biggest buying and selling platforms for Pokemon cards, raising their hand and saying, hey, listen, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there, y'all need to be paying attention to these cards because these are starting to move with a high degree of velocity on our website. And this list is always really fun. You know how much I love when a site like TCG Player shares their information with us. I believe it gives us an idea of what's going on at the macro level of the hobby. And we do this, as I said, every Sunday, and we've been doing this for a very, very long time. And a lot of times this can be somewhat predictive as to cards or segments of the market that are going to get really hot. Now, this list came out right before Journey Together launched on Friday. So the call out that they had down below, and this is really interesting, was on the eve of Journey Together, Breakthrough and Team Up have recaptured the spotlight. Now, if you've been following this channel at all over the last, 2 years, I don't really think either of these sets are really recapturing the spotlight, right? We've been tracking the XY era for the last 18 months, and we've been talking about how the cards in there are undervalued. We've been watching about how over the last 15 months, the aggregate value of the top 20 cards in every set that has a booster box has been going up in price over the last 15 consecutive months. And then at the same time, one of our principles here on this channel is if you are buying Pokemon cards and your intent is for over the next 5, 10, 15 years, those cards that we love so much to appreciate in value, then we always talk about your best opportunity. The way to give yourself the best chance of success is finding those big name Pokemon from some of the biggest and baddest sets out there. And that's exactly what Team Up is. Team Up is the biggest set from the Sun and Moon era. So we've been talking about that a lot on this channel as well. Now listen, as I always say, in a bull market, everybody looks like a genius. It is very easy to say, hey, listen, this card is up and I've been calling it, yada, yada. So take all that noise out of it. But think about it. These principles that we talk about, they're applicable in good markets and bad. You can really hardly ever go wrong when you're getting big name Pokemon from big sets. So we're going to talk about the 5 cards that are on this list. We got some stunners in the beginning. We end with a bang. We got a couple silly cards in the middle, but I promise it's going to be a ton of fun. And if you're enjoying yourself and you want to see more, we do this every Sunday and do some really cool stuff Monday through Friday. So hit that subscribe button, and if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. So with that out of the way, let's start talking about the cards that have been moving and shaking the most over the last week. Now, starting off with the first card, which is absolutely one of my favorite cards. I have some unintended bias in this card because I'm such a huge Gengar fan, but take that out of it and just think about all of the principles that we talked about in the very beginning of this video. Like, what are the boxes that this checks? Well, it's from Team Up, and obviously Team Up is the big set in the Sun and Moon era. We already talked about that. You know, when you think about print quantities, not only was Team Up short printed compared to its peers in the Sun and Moon era, but the Sun and Moon era as a whole had a much smaller print run versus the Sword and Shield era. Sword and Shield is when the pandemic happened, everybody flooded into Pokemon, and I mean, the Pokemon Company International just cranked the print lever all the way to full tilt, which was great. It met a demand and the market was happy, and you know, I think we're going to see something similar here, I don't know, hopefully over the next 6 months to meet some of this demand and supply, which is totally out of whack right now. But when you think about that, again, so you have a low print run from an awesome era, you've got a big name like Gengar up there, right? You have a card with a really crazy low gem rate. Sun and Moon did this awful thing to us where they had this silver and the black border lines going around. I mean, getting these things centered is absolutely murderous. So we've been talking about this card for a very, very, very long time about how it had the opportunity to do really well in the long run. And this is just the 1 year graph, and you'll see it's up 100%. And really, most of those gains have come over the last 6 months. But again, we've been talking about this card for like 18 months. It is a stunner. It is one of the big chase cards from the Team Up set, which is the chase set from the Sun and Moon era. So there's just a ton to love about this card. And it's really exciting to see that people are piling in right now. What's it going to do in the long run? It's all the way up at $550. How much higher can it go? I have no idea. My crystal ball doesn't work. But I think at the end of the day, it sure checks a lot of the boxes that I'm looking for as in terms of a long-term buy and hold. Now, the next card actually comes from Team Up as well, and is anything hotter right now than Eevee and Evolutions? It is insane. The Prismatic Evolutions has just ignited this fury, a fury that I didn't think could be ignited any hotter than it already was, but somehow it has happened. And so you see almost every Eevee or Evolution card out there spiking in price. And again, when you get a card like this that comes from a set like Team Up, you know, plus it's a combo with Snorlax, like these are it's just incredible. I mean, the awesomeness, the power of these Pokemon on such a cool card from such an incredibly rare set. You know, it's no surprise to see this one over the last 6 months is up 136%. Now, I will say, as we say all the time when we do this video series, you will see the bright blue line represents how the price moves over time. Those light blue bars that go up and down, right? Those represent sales volume, and you will see that there is a spike in price right when there was a spike in sales volume. So it could be a person or group of people who went on and bought what was available on TCG Player, which caused the price to spike, and we'll have to see what happens after that. So this was cruising around in the 40, 50, 60 range for the last 6 months, and then really over the last week, 2 weeks is when we've seen it pop all the way up to 100. So who knows if it's going to be able to hang on to it. But again, when you just think about the long run coming from Team Up, Eevee's not going to become less popular. Snorlax is not going to become less popular. I guarantee you both of that. So again, we've got another really cool card here that's going to be fun to watch in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead. So when we talk about silly cards, and this isn't a silly card, this is a very cool card, but it certainly kind of bucks the theme. But what are we seeing right now? Destined Rivals came out, right? And everybody absolutely poured into it. I mean, the poor Pokemon Center, well, not the poor Pokemon Center, they could have done a better job, but the Pokemon Center website got absolutely hammered. This was actually one of the first sets where I didn't get anything. I didn't get a PC ETB, I didn't get a booster box, I got nothing. I was in flight when it dropped, and by the time I landed, I had no chance. But what we will see and continue to see as we get closer is any cards from any Team Rocket or Rocket set from the past. Guarantee you we're going to start to see cards that spike in price. Now, the question is going to be, are they going to be able to hold on to those gains? That is yet to be determined. But then you got Rocket Sneasel right here. Again, not a ton of sales volume, but when you think about it, it is up 50% over a short amount of time. And you can see it's just kind of been stair-stepping its way up. So this certainly isn't on my personal buy list, but they called it out in this data set that they shared. And I thought it's worth talking about, right? That's why XY is going so crazy right now. XY is going crazy because the XY era is filled with Mega Pokemon. And what are we having that's coming out after Destined Rivals? We're going to have the return of Mega Pokemon. So you see this kind of cyclical nature to the Pokemon space. And I guarantee you we're going to see that even more, because guess what is the next card on the list? It's a Mega Pokemon, right? It's the M. Houndoom EX right here from the Breakthrough series. And, you know, I've done a lot of content really over the last, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks around Mega Pokemon cards and which cards I think have the opportunity to do really well. We've seen a lot of these, you know, most popular lists and a lot of these movers and shakers lists. We've seen a lot of M Pokemon on them. You know, and the other thing about the XY era is, when you look at the average value of the top 20 singles cards from all of the sets that have booster boxes, so 12 sets in XY, 12 sets in Sun and Moon, 12 sets in Sword and Shield, when you look at the average value of those top 20 cards, XY is at the lowest, okay? XY is the lowest of the low. Like, these cards are way underpriced compared to Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield. Now, you and I and the rest of the collecting market, we decide if that's undervalued or not, but in terms of pricing, the prices are much lower than Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield. So it's going to be interesting to see if, with the return of Mega Pokemon, if we start to see a lot of people roll into that XY era and we see a lot of cards go through this exact example right here. So when I think about big sets, right, I talked about that earlier. I think about Ancient Origins, right? I think about Phantom Forces. I think about Flash Fire. Those are the 3 big sets. And I know each of those sets have some pretty high price singles there at the very top, but we have seen where cards that have been in the $200, $300 range, like the first one we saw, right? The Gengar, it can go from $250, $300 to $500 overnight. So for me, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm looking at those big chase cards from those 3 sets to kind of have an idea of, hey, how high do I think these can go? Do I think they have the opportunity to pop off as we get closer and closer to this next, you know, kind of mini series that we have coming out in the Pokemon TCG? So it'll be interesting to watch, and I promised you we were going to end with a bang. And literally a bang. This is Wailord banging Magikarp up out of its blowhole into the air. And I promise, if you look at this card and you don't smile, then you probably are in the Pokemon collecting and investing space for all the wrong reasons, right? Like, I love the artwork. I love the fun and the enjoyment I get from collecting, not just with myself, but with my kids. My kids love this card. Like, everything about the artwork on this card, it just makes me smile. I think it's an absolute stunner, and I think it's really cool. Obviously, it's coming from the Team Up set, which we talked about before. You see the 1-year graph. It's actually only up 45%. 44%, and that is crazy to say out loud. Only 44%. There isn't an investment vehicle or space in the world that wouldn't go absolutely cuckoo-ca-choo for a 44% return over the course of a year, but in the Pokemon space, we're pretty spoiled. So anyways, this card right here coming in at $365. You see that a whole lot of the gains have come over the last couple weeks and months, and so it'll be interesting to see if it continues to take off. But again, this is a card that just brings a smile to my face. I love the artwork. I love how Magikarp just is like, I have no idea what's going on. How did I get way up here? It is everything that I love about the Pokemon hobby. So with that being said, that's it. Those are the cards that are moving and shaking the most at TCG Player. I had a ton of fun making this video, darn it, and I hope you had a ton of fun watching it as well. And if you did, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Give us a thumbs up if you like what you see, but most importantly, have an epic rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. See you later, everybody. Bye.